You're listening to Big World Network.
Delroy vs. the Yshtari, Episode 9, Angel in the Darkness. Written and read by Berin Stevens. An Yshtari with an orange orb staff stood behind the ones with the big honkin' guns. Hands. Head, sounded from the orb. Then it pointed a claw toward the cruise ship exit door. I complied and followed the Yshtari troops out of the hatchway. The butler bot grinned at me as I passed. It has been my supreme pleasure serving you, sir. I wanted to snatch one of those crossbow guns from an Yshtari and blow that smug-faced head right off that bot. Instead, I looked back at the Yshtari with the orb. I don't suppose you'll let me call my lawyer. No answer. Apparently, Yshtari don't have much of a sense of humor. Once outside, they escorted me through the landing area still filled with hundreds of Yshtari. It gave me a chance to study the functions of the different colored shells. The ones with the guns had reddish-brown shells. The dark brown-shelled ones were smaller and were busy unloading cargo from the royal ship. There were also dark green, dark blue, and red shells, but I couldn't determine what their functions were. The yellow shells that were there appeared to be issuing orders to the others. It felt unnerving walking amongst all those monsters. They stopped as I marched by, following me with their eye stalks. I could tell that their little crustacean minds were thinking of all the different ways they could fry me up and serve me. Well, same to you, bub, I said to one particular blue-shelled specimen who took a keen interest in me. How would you like to sit on a plate next to some melted butter and a baked potato, while I eat you? It lost interest in me and turned back to its duties. Once we were through the main crowd, I muttered into my earpiece, Minx, if you can at all swoop in here on the cycle and save me, now would be a good time. No response. Minx, are you there? Still nothing. I figured the idiot probably stopped at an Yshtari guard post to ask for directions. We passed several smaller Earth ships, no doubt gathered from several months of capturing humans. The last one in line, though, was a beauty, a Cobra-class scout ship. It was a little bit smaller than the Rutherford's Revenge, but, oh, were those babies fast. It looked intact, too, so I assumed this was the ship Stella was after. I decided not to hang around and find out what kind of entree they planned to turn me into. As we passed the loading ramp of the scout ship, I bolted away from my captors and ran toward it. My move caught them by surprise, allowing me to dodge out of their reach. I dashed up the ramp, pushed the button to open the door, and dove. Except the door hadn't opened. Instead, I bashed my forehead against it and bounced onto my butt. Lobster feet started up the ramp toward me. I jumped up and pushed the button again. Still no luck. I then noticed the number padlock next to it. I could have bypassed it in a minute, but I only had 2 seconds. Claws grabbed my arms and pulled me away. Run! Die! The orb said. I think I get the message, I said as they hauled me away. They dragged me to a large bulbous building only 100 meters away from the scout ship. A round door rolled aside as the guards pulled me through. The inside felt hot and humid like a sauna. We walked into a large round room with a dozen blue-shelled Yshtari slaving next to giant, rounded metal units. Racks of cutting implements hung from the wall, along with what looked like shelves filled with various spices. I knew a kitchen when I saw it, even if it was alien. I stopped. Hold it! Now wait a minute, guys. I'm really not that good to eat. I have several illnesses that will cause you some serious gastrointestinal issues. Trust me, you don't want to eat me. The orb spoke. Said, before, come. My guard, the brilliant conversationalist. A crossbow gun pushed into my back, and I resumed walking. They led me to a round door at one side of the room. We went down a tube-like corridor until we reached another door. It opened, and they pushed me inside. The unexpected shove landed me on a cold metal floor. The door rolled closed behind me. I pushed myself up to get a look at my surroundings. In the dim light, I could see 3 shadows looming over me. Oh, it's you, Stella said. Stella, my angel, I cried out as I jumped up and opened my arms to give her a hug. She stood there, glaring at me. So, now I'm your angel, huh? Was she smirking? I couldn't tell in the dim light. When she didn't come closer, I lowered my arms. You'll always be my angel. So I take it that your rescue went about as well as my parts gathering. You could say that. The other two shadows stepped forward, enabling me to see who they were, Trina and Mari. At least we got here before something bad happened to them. Of course, now whatever bad thing happened to them would happen to us. Trina came forward and wrapped her arms around me. "Oh, Rex, I'm so scared." Stella shook her head and muttered, "His name's not Rex, it's Delroy." "Can't you see the poor child is frightened?" I said as I patted Trina's shoulder. "We need a plan to get out of here," Stella said. "I always have a plan." I let go of Trina and reached into the secret pocket under my sash. I still have this. I pulled out my security bypass kit and smiled. "I guess you can be a little useful," Stella said. I went to the door and studied it. There were no traditional locking mechanisms that I could find. It was just a giant round slab of steel. How can I pick a lock when there's no lock to pick? I tried pushing on it to see if it would roll aside. "Brilliant," Stella said. "Don't you think I've already tried that?" She stared at me for several seconds before asking, "Can you still communicate with your bot? I lost my earpiece." "I couldn't a few minutes ago." "Minx, are you there? Minx, come in. We really could use your help right now, no matter how incompetent." Stella raised her eyebrow at me. All I heard through the earpiece was silence. I shook my head. "I'm afraid the nincompoop got caught, or else he drove off a cliff. Probably the latter." I reached into another pocket and pulled out my micro laser. But I still have one trick up my sash. I went to a wall that I figured led to the outside and started cutting. "That steel is thick. It'll take all day to cut through that thing," Stella said. "Well, unless you can think of something faster, this is all I've got." As I cut into it, though, I could see she was right. Stella walked up behind me. "Give it to me. At your pace, it'll take a week." Her look informed me that it wasn't a negotiation. I handed it to her without another word. She turned it on and went to work. The door rolled open, causing Stella to spin around and put the laser cutter behind her back. 2 guards rushed in. One held out a clawed hand toward Stella. She grimaced and handed him the laser cutter. The Yshtari turned toward me, holding out its claw. I put on my innocent face. The other Yshtari pointed its gun at me. "Oh, you mean this?" I held out my security bypass kit. "But this was my grandmother's," I lied. "It's a family heirloom. You can't take it." The clicking of the crossbow convinced me otherwise. I put it into the extended claw. "But I'm sure your family will get generations of enjoyment from it." The 2 Yshtari turned and marched out of the room. "They must have sensors," I said, looking up to the dark recesses of the ceiling. "You think?" Stella said. We all sat down on the floor and waited for I don't know how long in silence. Trina and Mari held each other for comfort. I tried to put my tremendous intellect to work on figuring a way out. I came up with nothing. My thoughts were interrupted by a sob. It was small and almost unnoticeable, but it came from Stella. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said in her tough voice, but I saw her wipe a tear from her cheek. "Don't play warrior princess with me. What's wrong?" I scooted closer to get a better look at her. Stella put her hands in her lap and looked up. "I've failed." She sniffed and brought one hand up to wipe her nose before returning it to her lap. "No, you haven't. We're not dead. There's still hope." I didn't feel it, but I figured it wouldn't do any good for both of us to break down. Stella needed me to be strong, so I decided to play that role. "Hope? I promised those girls that I'd get them and their boyfriends and husbands free. All I've done is doom them to servitude and to be eaten. And this was my chance to prove myself." "Prove yourself?" "But you're already very capable and talented. What do you have to prove?" "I need to prove to my father and my brothers that I can be as good a bounty hunter as they are. Instead, I failed to bring in my first assignment. And they gave me an easy one, too." "Me?" "Yes." "Well, I'm sure you would have succeeded splendidly. You can't blame yourself that a bunch of Yshtari got in the way and wrecked your plans. It's not your fault." I put my hand on her shoulder. She surprised me by not pulling away. "Stella, you're the best bounty hunter I've ever seen. If we get out of this, I'm sure you will prove yourself better than anyone could ever expect." She nodded. "Thank you. You're a low-life, conniving liar, but thank you. And you're right, we're not dead yet. There's still time to find a way to escape. Let me think, please." We lapsed back into silence for a while. After not coming up with any brilliant ideas, Stella and I spent the next few hours carefully inspecting the entire cell to see if there was any weakness we could exploit. Neither one of us found anything. The door rolled open. A long line of frightened women shuffled in under the watchful eye stalks of Yshtari guards. It took several minutes for all of them to squeeze in. By the time the door closed, the room was filled to capacity. Stella talked to several of the women as they entered. After a few minutes, I walked up to her and asked, "What's going on? This looks like everyone from the compound." Stella nodded. "It is. The Yshtari are preparing a giant feast in their queen's honor, and they want their favorite delicacy."
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on BigWorldNetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.